What's going on?
The judge also said Henyard could be held in contempt of court if those top administrators continued to show up at Village Hall for work.
Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, Illinois, is undergoing legal and political scrutiny following several court rulings and federal investigations. Allegations of improper appointments and financial mismanagement have raised questions about her leadership in both Dalton and Thornton Township.
County judge has issued a temporary restraining order blocking 3 of Mayor Tiffany Henyard's top appointees from taking power. Judge Thaddeus Wilson ruled this evening that Henyard did not have the legal authority to appoint a new police chief, village administrator, and village attorney without the approval of the Dalton Village.
In a significant legal setback, Henyard has been hit with multiple restraining orders after Dalton trustees accused her of exceeding her authority. She had appointed a police chief, village administrator, and village attorney without following proper procedures. A Cook County Circuit Court judge ruled these appointments invalid and issued restraining orders preventing the appointees from assuming their duties. This decision represents a serious challenge to Henyard's administration, with her actions now being examined.
Board. 4 trustees opposed to Henyard asked for that temporary restraining order, saying that under the law, those appointments must be approved by trustees. The judge agreed, saying, quote, the mayor has to follow the law and can't make appointments from her house.
For violations of local governance laws. In addition to her legal battles in Dalton, Henyard is also under federal investigation related to her role as Thornton Township supervisor. The investigation appears to focus on potential corruption and financial mismanagement within the township. Federal subpoenas have been issued requesting a broad range of documents, including employment records, financial statements, receipts, and communications connected to the Tiffany Henyard Cares Foundation. The subpoenas also cover contracts involving individuals and organizations associated with Henyard's political and business activities. The investigation is wide-ranging, seeking documents related to township budgets, board meeting minutes, and dealings with various vendors and law firms. It also includes records of trips taken by Henyard and her team to Springfield, Washington, D.C., and Las Vegas, suggesting that federal authorities are conducting a thorough inquiry. Henyard's legal troubles have drawn increasing public attention. Residents of Dalton and Thornton Township have become more vocal in their criticism of her leadership, with many calling for her resignation. Numerous protests and public meetings have taken place, with community members expressing frustration over what they see as mismanagement of public funds and a lack of transparency in Henyard's administration. Thornton Township residents, in particular, have rallied to take our township back, voicing concerns about the handling of township resources and the ongoing federal investigation. The protests have escalated as more information about the subpoenas and legal proceedings has come to light. Tiffany Henyard's time as both the mayor of Dalton and the supervisor of Thornton Township has been fraught with controversy, with court rulings and federal investigations highlighting potential power abuse.
Starters, we paid a visit to Village Hall around 3 this afternoon, and I'm told Mayor Tiffany Henyard was not at work today. As for that court order, this is a major win for those trustees who have been up against Henyard for some time.
And mismanagement. As legal battles unfold, Henyard's political future remains uncertain, with increasing public dissatisfaction and federal authorities closing in. She faces significant challenges in maintaining her positions. Henyard's frustration is apparent, as seen in a recent post expressing her anger over recent developments in Dalton, specifically her appointments of Michael Smith as village administrator, Ronnie Burge as police chief, and Angela Lockett as village attorney have sparked public outcry, and a temporary restraining order concerning these appointments has only intensified her outrage. Before diving deeper into the reasons for Henyard's current anger, it's important to mention the Dalton Township lawsuit discussed at a recent meeting. Henyard disclosed that the township nearly lost a $1 million lawsuit by default due to a lack of legal representation. Now, let's examine the latest developments involving Keith Price, who is accused of threatening and intimidating employees, while Henyard is accused of turning a blind eye. The lawsuit at hand involves Gerald Jones, son of Township trustee Gerald Jones, who is suing the township. Keith Price is named as a defendant in both his individual and official capacities, along with Tiffany Henyard. Jones, a former Thornton Township employee who served for about a decade, alleges that he was mistreated and retaliated against after reporting a rodent infestation at the township's food assistance program. He claims that the program's manager and others subjected him to threats and unfair treatment. Furthermore, the lawsuit accuses Thornton Township, under Henyard and Price, of fostering a toxic work environment and retaliating against employees who expose unethical behavior. The case is set to uncover the extent of Keith Price's alleged abuse of power. Let's break it down. After Henyard was appointed supervisor of Thornton Township in March, she quickly...
Don Andrew Holmes has been a familiar face in Chicago for many years for his work as a community activist helping crime victims and police. But now Holmes is being accused of sexual assault in a lawsuit filed late last night by a former employee of the village of Dalton and a Dalton police officer.
Filled key positions with her loyal supporters, including Keith Price, whom she named manager of the local pantry's food assistance program. It wasn't long before Jones realized Price's primary goal was to purge staff members. This was expected, as Henyard has a reputation for surrounding herself only with those who show unquestioning loyalty. Anyone who is independent, speaks out, or raises ethical concerns is swiftly removed. From March to January, Jones experienced mistreatment and threats from Price, who often made rude, degrading, and unprofessional comments toward both Jones and other staff members. Having attended several township supervisor meetings, it's no surprise to see Keith Freeman addressing public gatherings in the same manner he likely treats employees privately. Additionally, since Price took over as food assistance program manager, the pantry has seen a decline in the quality of its food and service to clients. For example, in December, Jones discovered a mice infestation in the pantry, posing serious health and safety risks. By December, Jones also noted Price's harsh demeanor. Frustrated by the lack of action, Jones escalated the issue to OSHA on January 3rd. On January 17th, OSHA responded, informing him that the pantry had addressed the infestation. As a result, OSHA, representing Illinois, considered the complaint resolved. However, once Price learned of Jones's formal complaint, his mistreatment of Jones intensified. In early February, Price escalated his threats by telling Jones in front of other pantry workers that they could go outside and that he would physically assault him. After Jones reported the pantry's mice problem, Price retaliated by denying him overtime shifts, even though others continued to receive them. Prior to his complaint, Jones had regularly worked overtime without issue, but following his formal report, Price's behavior took a drastic turn, publicly humiliating Jones in front of both coworkers and clients. The situation began to deteriorate rapidly in January. The work environment became so hostile that employees started openly carrying firearms for protection. I'm uncertain about the legality of this. Is open carry even allowed in this context? They're not law enforcement, so I'm unsure what's happening. Back in January, a food pantry worker wrote something alarming on the chalkboard. When I leave here, everyone will end. I don't even know how to respond to that. Was it Price who wrote it? It's unclear, but regardless, it's deeply unsettling. By April, Gerald Jones made the tough decision to leave the food pantry, no longer able to endure the abuse he suffered from Keith Price. Jones had reached his breaking point, fearing for his safety. Price, as a manager of the food assistance program, didn't just oversee operations. He used his role to intimidate and harass his staff. Things got worse after Jones reported a mice infestation. Price's behavior became even more threatening, with him allegedly making violent comments and suggesting they should settle things physically. This was not just a moment of poor judgment, but blatant intimidation and severe workplace abuse, highlighting the dangers of unchecked authority. Even more concerning is that this behavior didn't happen behind closed doors. It was witnessed by other employees, further contributing to the toxic atmosphere at Doton Township. When a manager feels free to mistreat an employee without fear of repercussions, it's a damning reflection of the leadership, or the lack thereof, at Doton Township. We also need to consider Tiffany's role as supervisor. Her lack of action is not only disturbing but sadly predictable. As the leader of Thornton Township, she had a responsibility to ensure a safe and fair work environment. Instead, she either turned a blind eye or actively enabled Price's retaliatory behavior, the latter seeming more likely. After Jones filed his complaint, Price retaliated by denying him overtime and publicly humiliating him in front of other staff. This isn't an isolated incident. It fits a clear pattern of behavior that Henyard should have addressed. But instead of stepping in, Henyard ignored Price's actions, seemingly approving of them, allowing the mistreatment of staff to continue unchecked. As a result, Jones has suffered both financial loss and significant emotional distress due to Thornton's retaliation. In light of this, Gerald Jones is seeking a judgment against the defendants, requesting back pay, damages for emotional distress, punitive damages, interest, attorney's fees, and any further relief deemed appropriate by the court. Notably, as shown in the video evidence, no representatives from the township have appeared in this lawsuit, a multi-million-dollar case, yet not a single township representative showed up. What does this reveal about the leadership in the township? It clearly demonstrates a state of chaos and dysfunction under Tiffany Henyard's administration, who seems to be attempting to shift the blame for the lack of legal representation. Although they have managed to postpone the issue for now, it highlights the confusion surrounding the situation. The matter remains unresolved, but we will be keeping a close eye on developments to grasp the outcome. Unfortunately, this does not bode well for the township, particularly for Keith Freeman and Tiffany Henyard. Now, let's address the underlying issue that has led to Tiffany Henyard's considerable frustration. The ongoing controversy centers around Mayor Tiffany Henyard's alleged overreach in appointing key positions within the village without obtaining the necessary legal approval from the Board of Trustees. A temporary restraining order was triggered following the dismissal of Keith Freeman and the subsequent appointment
travel guidelines in place for elected officials and also put caps on spending and salaries. Those proposals come after a series of controversial moves by Henyard, who's accused of using public money for personal gain and not being transparent about her spending. So when the trustees showed up to the meeting last night, the agenda included none of those proposals, so they refused to budge on this.
Of Michael Smith as his successor. Furthermore, Angel Lockett has been named village attorney, and Ronnie B. Verge has taken on the role of police chief. This situation highlights a significant power struggle within the Dalton government, raising important legal and ethical questions regarding the proper exercise of authority in governance. Additionally, Jason House and Brittany Norwood are closely connected to these developments. In the case of Kiana Belair and Tammy Brown against Tiffany Henyard, both personally and in her role as mayor of Dalton, alongside Michael A. Smith, Angel Lockett, and Ronnie Burge Jr., we examine the crucial details. Kiana Belcher and Tammy Brown represent 4 of the 6 elected trustees, forming the majority on the Board of Trustees. Tiffany Henyard is the mayor, while Keith Freeman is the duly appointed village administrator. The individuals Michael A. Smith, Angel Lockett, and Ronnie Burge Jr. are alleged to have been unlawfully appointed by Mayor Henyard to various positions within the village. Price has begun issuing directives to village employees, emphasizing adherence to various laws and ordinances enacted by the village board. For example, Price requested that all service requests from Mayor Henyard be documented in writing to ensure proper allocation of resources. Department heads were instructed to remove any signage featuring Mayor Henyard's name and likeness to comply with village regulations. Moreover, Price mandated that all expenditures incurred by the mayor's office must receive approval from the Board of Trustees. The police department was informed that the mayor's security detail had been activated according to ordinance. Additionally, Price directed the issuance of permits to the Dalton Park District, which had previously been delayed by the mayor without valid justification, and communicated to department heads that Tiffany Henyard was responsible for related matters. The village stopped selling vehicle stickers, and upon learning of this decision, Mayor Henyard took steps to terminate Keith Price. As the village administrator, she ordered the IT director to disable Price's email account, hindering his ability to perform any tasks related to the village. On 2 occasions, she told Janice Johnson, the Director of Administrative Services, to draft a termination letter for Price. During one of these instances, Mayor Henyard had her boyfriend, Louis Lacey, the former deputy police chief, stand outside Janice's office to ensure she wouldn't leave until the letter was prepared. However, during the village board meeting, Miss Johnson rejected the mayor's attempts to draft a termination letter for Keith Price. Although Mayor Henyard called for a vote on Price's termination, no motion was made, resulting in no formal action. Nevertheless, she declared that Keith Price was fired. Now, let's examine this situation. Mayor Henyard's attempts to terminate Keith Price without following legal procedures are unfortunately typical of her behavior. She disregarded established protocols, even though the board had previously approved the price. Instead, she instructed her staff to lock him out of his office and cut off his email access, creating chaos in Dalton. This is yet another attempt to consolidate power without regard for legal processes. In a particularly striking moment, she allegedly pressured her Director of Administrative Services to draft a termination letter for Keith Price. To ensure compliance, she stationed her boyfriend, former Deputy Police Chief Louis Lacey, outside the office. How can such behavior be accepted in a professional setting? It resembles something out of a mob movie, a bold move that heightened the drama. Henyard brazenly declared at the board meeting that her decision regarding Price was final, despite the board not having formally voted on it. This blatant disregard for protocol was not just a rule violation.
Well, Mr. Lacey is absolutely not guilty of all 9 counts. I believe he's cooperating. And if you cooperate, you have to admit your guilt first.
It felt like a complete break from the governing process. To make matters worse, she again bypassed the board by appointing Michael Smith as village administrator and Angel Lockett as village attorney without obtaining formal approval. Although Mayor Henyard, Trustee Andrew Holmes, Trustee Stanley Brown, and several community members gathered at Village Hall, they failed to establish a quorum required for a meeting, leaving the session uncalled to order. Henyard began by requesting reports from various department heads. Subsequently, her personal attorney, Beau Brindley, addressed the so-called attacks on her administration, discussing alleged corruption within the Board of Trustees and the controversial termination of Keith Price as village administrator. Mr. Brindley's remarks included numerous misinterpretations of the Open Meetings Act and the Illinois Constitution. According to the Illinois Municipal Code and subsequent court rulings, Mayor Henyard has decided to appoint Lakeside Legal and attorney Angel Lockett as the new village attorney. She also appointed Michael Smith as the village administrator, bypassing any trustee votes concerning both appointments. Additionally, she appointed Ronnie Burge as police chief without any input from the board. These actions clearly convey a message of unilateral control, suggesting that she feels she does not need anyone's approval. The appointment of Ronnie Burge Jr. occurred just days ago during a closed meeting without the consent of the Board of Trustees that it appears that Henyard is determined to foster a hostile working environment, not only in Dalton, but also in Thornton Township. Everything Tiffany touches seems to leave the community disoriented and lacking direction, causing significant internal damage to the village and undermining the foundations of local governance. As a result, Dalton is currently issuing restraining orders. Notably, Keith Freeman remains in his position, while Michael Smith is no longer the village administrator. Angel Lockett is not the village attorney, and Ronnie Burge has stepped down as police chief. Essentially, all the individuals she appointed hold no official roles in the village's governance. As none of these appointments can be reinstated until the Board of Trustees votes on the matters, this situation indicates that Tiffany is undoubtedly furious and may seek to appeal these decisions. The ensuing conflict will likely persist until the FBI intervenes, or until the next mayoral election next year. As it stands, Tiffany is not getting her way, which only promises to escalate the chaos further. Ultimately, Tiffany Henyard's leadership as mayor of Dalton and supervisor of Thornton Township is under intense scrutiny due to a series of legal and ethical challenges. These range from court-ordered restraining orders concerning unlawful appointments in Dalton to federal investigations into potential mismanagement in Thornton Township. Henyard faces increasing pressure on multiple fronts as public outcry and legal setbacks highlight significant concerns regarding her governance style, particularly in terms of transparency and accountability. As the investigations and court cases progress, Henyard's political future remains uncertain, with growing calls for her resignation and increasing public dissatisfaction with her administration. That's all for today's video. Stay tuned for the next one.